assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Called to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. It is the 14th of December, and we are here at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery to convene the Avatamsaka Sutra translation, the 10 grounds. We're on ground number 5, so welcome to our Sutra lecture, and it's good to be here. I've been traveling a lot on Saturday nights and sick a bunch on Saturday nights, and so now healthy and back. So very much appreciate folks' willingness to step in and keep the Dharma wheel turning. And I am very aware that we probably have more people joining us online than we do in the room, which has something to do with in the deep midwinter, and also something to do with the fact that tomorrow's an Amitabha session beginning at CTDB, and that also is a testimony to the quality of the webcast, that people can actually stay home and feel like they're getting pretty good sutra lecture. So it's funny how we could price ourselves right out of the market, so to speak. You know the old cartoon about the professor who decided to switch over to pre-recording his lectures, and so bit by bit the class he would put a tape recorder up on the lectern in front of the room and press the button. And two weeks passed, and the next panel of the cartoon strip is the projector, the tape recorder is rolling with his voice, and on every one of the students' desks there's a tape recorder recording what he says. So in the room there's no human being, there's just recorder to recorders. So let's hope we don't get to that point. There is something valuable about having flesh and blood lecture, not only the fact that you can also get tigers involved, which that's a real plus. But the quality of our webcast is definitely improving, so people can join in from far away. Let me switch here. One of the just right. One of the other important assets about doing this weekly webcast is bit by bit you get better at the tools. So now when I go out to all the many different venues where I lecture, when it comes time to hook up to the computer, to the video, to the audio, I've pretty much seen the available tools. And people will come out with a unit like this and kind of go, let's see now, Fa Sure, let me hook you up. And I go, now we got a better one. There, we're ready to go. And they go, oh, okay, so you know about these things. We've tried so many tools over the years and so many different formats and software programs and what used to be called solutions, right? We'll sell you solutions to problems you didn't know you had. We'll solve it. And they worked for a while, and then we progress. So I think the next big step for DRBA is going to be moving this up to the city of 10,000 Buddhas. And the Berkeley team was responsible for the last couple successful webcasts from the tent out back behind the Buddha Hall at City of 10,000 Buddhas, and also right from the Buddha Hall at CTTB. So that's, I think, the future is going to be having Dharma assemblies webcast live. Maybe 24/7 sounds, it's an attractive phrase. In fact, there are a few hours every night where the Buddha Hall at CTTB is dark. But it starts up again at 4 in the morning and finishes at 10 with the Ko Jing Ji, the verse for ringing the bell. So we'll look forward to that. Meanwhile, now I'm aware that we haven't begun yet, so this is all preamble. One of the realities is that I will be traveling again to Australia for the winter, for their summer, and we're working on that process of how the Avatamsaka Sutra lecture will continue during that time. So we're going to have a variety of qualified and capable lecturers come sitting on this seat. But we're also looking into possible ways that perhaps I could have a part in that from afar. And we'll talk about that a little later. Meanwhile, let us begin by turning to our recently expanded, have more pages as of today, Avatamsaka Sutra lecture texts. And we'll start with the invocation of the assembly and the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Fo Pu Sa Na Mo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Please turn to page 42 and 43. This is a very interesting section of our text. We'll find out why in a minute. Okay, paragraph 2, second paragraph, in both pages, both Chinese and English. Okay, I'll give you a line and you give it back. 佛子菩萨摩诃萨住此第五南圣地，名为念者，不忘诸法故。Okay, good. Over to the right. Disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, who dwells upon this, the fifth ground of difficult conquest, is called the mindful one, because he does not forget all dharmas. All right. Here we go. What follows in this paragraph is 20 names. 20 names. 10 in the first chunk and 10 in the second chunk. And the sentence, the structure of it is the same each time. It's Mingwei is called, and then something, 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 gu. Because. The Bodhisattva is called this because of that. So, how does this make sense to us? One way is to put it in the context. Think about a jigsaw puzzle. Who in the last year made a jigsaw puzzle? Anybody? Any one person make a jigsaw puzzle in the last year? Yes, in the back? Yes? No? Anybody? Virtual jigsaw puzzles are fun because they have that magnetic thing. The piece just flips over. No? Jigsaw puzzles are a thing of the past. You know when we used to make jigsaw puzzles? At the lake in the summer, when there was nothing else to do. It was so boring, right? David, when was the last time you did a jigsaw puzzle? 3 years ago. And before that? Okay, and were you at the lake in the summer and were you bored? Los Angeles. Oh, okay. So, jigsaw puzzles used to be a major form of entertainment. They were something you did. And the more pieces, the better. And what you did when you started was you had a card table. Anybody have a card table? Why did you have a card table? Because people used to play cards. Right? Okay, so, boy, memory lane, right? Jigsaw puzzles, cards. People used to play cards when there was no TV or computer or Wi-Fi to plug into. What do? You're sitting around, dinner's over, or you're just eating a big lunch and you're looking at each other. Nothing to do. Let's play cards. Let's play it. Let's make a jigsaw puzzle. So you get this box. You set up the card table. The card table is this light four-legged table that slips into the corner when it's not being used. You put the card table up. You open up this big square box, and there's all these little pieces in it. And they're all cut funny shapes, right? And you dump it out on the table, and you go, let's see. Here's these two have a straight edge. That must be an edge, right? Put one down. You put a second piece and a third piece, and bit by bit by bit, this picture forms. It's called a jigsaw puzzle because to cut it out, you need a jigsaw. And a jigsaw is this really thin blade saw that can cut different angles. Really, it can turn quickly. So the pieces get all these different shapes. The pieces look like broken glass, right? Maybe we can relate to that. So, when you're done, there's this beautiful picture. And jigsaw puzzles were usually like the Swiss Alps, right? Or the gardens at Montmorency or something like that, or the Champs-Élysées or the Eiffel Tower, something very beautiful. And you get down, it goes faster as you get closer because there's fewer pieces and fewer holes. And you plug it in, it's all done. Jigsaw puzzle. So what does it do? It takes time. And it's really boring and you can do it. It's fun to do it with friends. So that's what we used to do before we had electronic entertainment. So the sutra is a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle. And because we go sequentially through it, week by week, and we only get a little bit of progress, it's easy to forget where we were. Or, if you weren't here, then it's like, this makes no sense. When you see the rest of the puzzle, it's like, oh, I get it, click. It all fits together. This makes sense now. So, with that in mind, what's going on? We have a bodhisattva candidate, a potential bodhisattva, somebody who wants to wake up. And they have come in their training, in their development, in their preparation to be a real bodhisattva, they've come a long way. The 5th ground out of 10 grounds is way up on the bodhisattva path. It's far along the road. And so this bodhisattva in training has progressed from ground 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're halfway through 5. Each one of these grounds has a different quality. It's got a different flavor, different chemistry, different combination. It's kind of like, what's it like? It's like every night, let's say every day at lunch. Let's look at lunch. Every day at lunch we eat, but lunch is different every day. If you ate the same food every single day, not as much fun is different. So Monday, you eat Thai food, veggie of course. Tuesday is Indian veggie food, and Wednesday is American down-home, veggie barbecue, veggie spaghetti, veggie salad, and so forth. Then Chinese on Thursday, etc. So it's all food, but it tastes different every day. The 10 grounds are all Buddha Dharma, but each one is different. Each ground is different. And they correspond to, they're not random different, just to make the flavor different. They develop from inside. What these 10 grounds do is they take your nature and polish it so it shines brighter every step. Each ground has further refined your experience, what you see. What would it be like? Think back to your childhood, and when you were how old? From like age 0, when you first came out, up until when? Maybe, depends on how many siblings you had. Maybe let's say if you were the middle child, probably up to about 5 or 6 or 7, when you realized that you were not the center of the universe. And you had a Gogo or a Jie, and you had a Mei or a Didi. And if you were the treasured little Bao for a while, and then Didi came along, and he got the attention, or she got the attention, suddenly you weren't the queen or the king, and it's like, Ugh. And so you, bit by bit, this awareness that you were not alone grew. Then, when it happened? Maybe you tried out for a team, an athletic team, and got cut, and you had a failure. Or maybe you didn't get something that you really wanted, like a class election in high school. Or maybe you did. Maybe you got a number 1 in something, first chair violin, or best captain of the swimming team, or something like that. Bit by bit, as we grew and matured, we realized, I live in a world with other people. That's a very natural thing that happens, right? This gradual awareness. What is aware of it? Your own mind. The only thing that changes is you're seeing differently now. You see it differently. Did somebody turn the furnace off? Or did it just naturally go down? Okay, it'll pick up again. Good. I don't want people to freeze here. So, bit by bit, it's your mind that recognizes changes, right? You refine your sense of self as you grow. The bodhisattva in the 10 grounds has the same thing happen. As he or she is cultivating up the path, things change inside, right? And bit by bit, you see more. You're aware that there's more connections, deeper. We're more deeply connected than you knew before. So, the more you cultivate, it's kind of bittersweet because it's easier to see the connections, but the more connections you see, the more you realize you have to cultivate harder because you see more beings suffering. That's one of the realities when I hear people in Taiwan tell me that so-and-so has their Tianyan open, so-and-so has psychic ability, they have shentong, and I go, oh really? You have shentong, huh? Okay, well, which shentong do you have? Well, just shentong. Oh, really? Okay, was it the deva eye or the deva ear? Knowledge of past thoughts, past lives, maybe? Can you walk on water and, go through rock? Or do you have the ending of outflows? Well, it's just, what do you give me so much trouble for? It's just shentong, Okay, if you have your deva eye open, what's it look like in the hells? And it must be pretty horrific to really have your deva eye open. What if you could see all the way to the hells? What would you be seeing? Oh, I saw a photo essay of a 6-car auto accident in Sichuan last week. And it was just a pile-up. No, it wasn't that. It was 12 cars piled up on some highway in Sichuan. 6 people died. And the pictures of the cars were just mushed flat. And you thought nobody came out of that. And that's here in humanity. There's somebody's life ended. But when you think about the hells, that's all it's about. So, with every increase in seeing comes the need for more responsibility with what you see, what humanity is capable of, and what the whole experience of birth and death is really about. So, it's kind of bittersweet. And they talk about blissful ignorance. There is something good about not seeing all that, which is you don't have to be responsible for the pain that this bodhisattva is seeing. Okay, that's kind of grim, isn't it? Sorry to take you down that road. Here we go. The bodhisattva is now in the 5th stage, and our jigsaw is getting more complete here. And she now has special names. The bodhisattva, mahasattva, who stays here, who rests, not dwells, who lives, who exists, who passes time, who passes through this 5th stage, has 20 names now that they can be called. This one is called the mindful one. She is called Nian. If we strip this down to the basics, the zhe occurs after each one. One who, one is, or just capital letter almost, like Mr. President, capital P, right? Chairperson, capital C. So the zhe there is a nominalizer. It makes a personal, proper noun out of what precedes it. That's how the zhe functions there. Y'all see that? 因为智者, 名为念者, that word 者 is just makes a noun out of what precedes it. 名为 is repeated every single time. 名为 something, 名为, right? It's called, we name him, her, Nian. So, this bodhisattva now can be called Nian. Good memory. 32 gigs in a single secure digital card. 128 gig cards are now available. Right? So, Nianzhe, the memory one, the one of great memory. And then it tells us why. Why is this bodhisattva called a memory one? It's called because 不忘诸法故. Let's translate that into English. The zhu here shouldn't be translated all. Every time. And the first time we went through this, we kind of did that. We kind of translated it as all automatically. When you see zhu, it's just all immediately. Not. Much better to make sense of this, if we don't translate that as all, but instead we make it pluralizer, so it's multiple, plural, more than one, then the D here becomes capital D, Dharma. We call this guy the memory guy. Why? Because he doesn't forget the Dharma. D, capital D. Remembers the Dharma. All right? Better instead of all dharmas. What are all dharmas? That's incomprehensible Buddhist jargon. So let's work on capital D. This bodhisattva doesn't forget the Dharma. Oh, I got it. What does that mean? Well, for example, I'm really into lists. I like lists, and Marty, my bowing companion of years past, doesn't much worry about lists. He's very much into systems. Less into principles, less into specifics. I never met a practice method that I didn't want to try out. For Marty, it's one method, the same old one that he started with, that he likes, that works. Why change? Why switch? And I would be like juggling 3 different techniques at once. And he would say, "You're nuts. You're just scattering all over the map. How are you ever going to do anything if you don't focus?" And I go, "Well, but you're all good." You know? So, the Dharma. And I would always like to know the 2, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 9, the 21, the 108, you know. So, different qualities, different characters. 不忘诸法故. He doesn't forget what he's heard. Okay, well, for example, you recall in the 4th ground, it was the wings of enlightenment, right? The Bodhipaksha dharmas, the wings, the limbs of enlightenment, the wings to awakening. We had all these different names for what came up in the 4th ground. 4th or 3rd? 4th ground, right? The Bodhi shares was the 4th ground. Yeah. So the list of them. And sometimes we kind of go right by that and just nod. Why is Buddhism that way? Why do we have so many lists of things? I don't remember in Christianity. I mean, there are the four Gospels. There's the 12 disciples at the Last Supper. How many Psalms are there in the book of Psalms? I forget, yeah. It's not a big deal in Christianity that you need numbers, but in Buddhism, immediately, 4 noble truths, 8-fold path, 12 links, 6 paramitas, etc. There's always these numbers of things. And, of course, over the years, there's different theories about why this is so. And Professor Konza, our late translator of Prajnaparamita out of Sanskrit, said, in his opinion, and he loved controversy, he said,
"Yes, well, that's because that's all there was in the Dharma to begin with. Fundamentally, that's all there was."
He said, which was what? Lists. He called them mother lists. And he said, "Do you think our prince out in the forest was interested in starting a religion? No, he was just collecting practices. And he met them all. All the yogis in the woods had their favorite practice. And Siddhartha was good at them. He was good at all of them. And he would try all the different yoga asanas. And my goodness, there's a bunch. At Buddha Root Farm this last summer, Fabrizio kept saying, "Okay, it's too cold to work on the floor, let's do a standing set." He'd do a whole, set of yoga asanas standing up. And then we said, "Okay, well, we want to do lower bodies." So a whole bunch of asanas for lower. Lists and lists and lists, like that. So, as we were studying the 4th ground, came up the 7 limbs of enlightenment. And there's that wonderful story about how there was a monk who was sick, really, really, really sick, and sick to the point where his body was discharging all kinds of stinky, oozing stuff. And none of the bhikshus wanted to really, get very close to him to try to bathe him or change his clothes and things. He was just a stinky mess. And the Buddha came along and found him there and sat right down beside him and took his hand and put a cold cloth on his head. And all the bhikshus are feeling very ashamed and embarrassed because they didn't want to get close to him. So here's the Buddha just personally caring for this monk. And he said, well, he said, and how are you feeling? And he said, no, no, so good. Do you remember when in the past you felt this way before? No, I don't. Well, I do. And in fact, this disease is completely in accord with the causes and conditions that you have created. So if you can be patient and understand them well, he said, I think you might be able to get better pretty quickly. So he said, now, do you remember, said the Buddha, those teachings that I gave you back, in Kapilavastu somewhere, about the ones called the 7 limbs to awakening, the 7 wings of awakening, the 7 limbs of enlightenment? And the monk said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, could you tell me what they are? Well, the first one was, cough, cough, cough. It was, I think it was called selecting a dharma. Very good, you do remember. And can you explain it to me? Well, you said. So the monk starts to repeat back what the Buddha said to him. And that's very good, said the Buddha. Number 2. Tell me number 2. Well, I think that's called vigor. You work hard on that one you pick, So he starts stepping him through, asking him in a very Socratic, very dialogical, very human call and response, question and answer, Q&A way. And the monk gets through the 7, and as he explains the 7th one, his illness vanishes. He falls away. And his skin starts to glow again, and he starts to breathe without obstacles. And all the monks are going, oh, a miracle! By God, it's a miracle! Saints be praised! No, they don't say that. They said, Buddha be praised! And not in a phony Italian, Irish accent. So the Buddha says, and you see, all illnesses are one illusory illness. And all medicines are one illusory medicine. It's simply the karma that we create. When the conditions arise, the dharma exists. When the conditions disperse, the phenomena is gone, he said. So, cultivate well, O bhikshus, said the Buddha. And they're all going, wow, what a great Sherpa we have. And the monk is like, that was it, huh? It's all better now. So, sure enough, in that case, by reciting, simply bringing to mind the 7 limbs of enlightenment, the 7 wings of awakening, it was enough merit and virtue in the Buddha's presence, explaining it to the Buddha, that the illness vanishes. Which is, it's a huge lesson on memory, remembering the Dharma. How does it go? It's called the Mr. Memory because he doesn't forget the Dharma. So how good to remember all 7. And 2, the nature of illness and the nature of health. What is health but a balance? Staying in the center with all the elements. Not too many, not too few. Being able to let the spirit count. Sometimes it's especially when you're sick, it's easy to think that the world is a material world. And the body and medicine and health and stuff is basically where it's at. What that story illustrates is how much of the world is the mind, is invisible. And it's just getting it proper and straight and balanced that actually runs the physical. That form follows function, it's true, and function follows principle. So, here's the Bodhisattva is called the mindful one, the one who can remember, Mr. Memory, because, why? He keeps the Dharma in mind. So, sounds miraculous, but there's another wonderful story about, did anybody hear about Wang Shanren? Yeah? Some people who have been following Master Hua. His name was Goodman Wang, and his name was actually Wang Fengyi. He was, by all accounts, an illiterate village guy from Dongbei, from Manchuria, who had real virtue. He had Daoda. And he was called Good Man, the humanitarian Wang, because he walked and talked through the village and helped people out all the time. And his method of healing, he didn't use pills or potions. needles, massage, anything, antibiotics. He talked to people. And it might be that he had shentong himself, psychic abilities. Maybe he was just so tuned in that he could see where people were off. And he would do things, he would heal illnesses just like the Buddha's story. This is the man around whom the Dao De Hui, the virtue society, grew. And Master Hua was part of that for years. And he knew Good Man Wang. So Good Man Wang would go out in the village and find people who were seriously ill, sometimes like suicide, for example, suicidal tendencies, or just they would have asthma so bad they couldn't breathe. And there was a case when old Mrs. Lee, no, it was young Mrs. Lee, it was the daughter, young Mrs. Lee, who should be very healthy and strong, right, was like in bed and she felt this pressure, she couldn't breathe, and people call it asthma or something mysterious. So Wang Shanren went to her and talked to her and said, well, what's going on? And she said, nothing, no, I'm just sick, And he said, oh, you want to get better? No, I'm just sick. And so he said, oh, not time yet. So he left, right? And then her situation got worse and worse and worse. And he got to the point where she really couldn't breathe. They called him back. He came back and said, you ready to talk to me now? He said, why did you steal the boots? And she said, I didn't steal any boots. So why did you steal the boots? I didn't steal any boots. You want to die? What about your 3 kids? Well, tell me about the boots. What happened? Well, I didn't have any boots. He said, if you can tell me, if you can confess. And his key words were 道过. If you can 道过, if you can admit your mistakes, if you be honest about what you did, he said, we'll get somewhere. So she was like, she really couldn't breathe. And so he said, well, I'll just sit here when you're ready. He said, we'll make you better, but you have to tell me the truth. So he said, tell me about the boots. She said, well, she had it coming anyway. What do you mean? Well, she took my umbrella. Oh, what about the boots? She said, they're under the bed. So he pulled out the work boots under the bed that she had stolen. And he took them to the person who they belonged to and said, show me the umbrella. What umbrella? So they got it all straightened out, and the asthmatic symptoms went away, and they became friends again. And everybody goes, wow, Wang Shanren is, what's all? And all he did to heal illness was get people to unburden their conscience, basically, among other things. But it worked and of course he had to be right about what was going on. But when he would know the right time, until the woman was really ready to admit she was sick. And once she had nowhere to go, it was either 道过 or die, basically, and her kids and all. So that was when things changed. So remembering the Dharma is really key. Okay, got it? And this person becomes known for that. Ming Wei. You get known as. Okay, here we go. Ming Wei zhi zhe neng shan jue liao gu. She is called the wise one because she can understand decisively. She decisively understands. Not lukewarm, not murky, but decisively. Good shan, neng, can, shan, good at, skillfully, jue, resolve, liao, understand. She can get it clearly. Okay? Ming wei you qu zhe, zhi jing yi qu. Okay? He is called one who has the aim, because he knows the purport and meaning of the sutras. Oh, I'm sorry, I left out a bit. Here we go. Zhi jing yi qu ci di lian he gu. There we go. And arranges them in categories and knows how they're related to each other. That translation is needs some polishing a bit. Let's look at it word for word. Here we go. We're on line 3 now. 名为有趣者. You could translate this as the funny guy. 很有趣. 兴趣. Could be the funny one, right? The humorous person, but it's not that. For sure it's not. Called the funny guy. Nope. The comedian. Nope. That's not it. 趣 is the drift. In English we say he gets the drift, right? You get it. Who understands 趣 is a direction. It's the intent. It's the heading. If you ever sail, if you're a sailor on a sailboat and you're powered by the wind, you need to know your heading. What direction are you heading? Your compass is really, really important. Also, if you don't have a magnetic compass and you have a sextant, wow, the discovery that the stars and the sun were constants and we were spinning, that was a huge, huge step forward in navigation. Until that time, if we're the center, you could sail off the edge of the earth because it's just totally, there's no system to it. But once Galileo or Copernicus looked up and said, no, actually, you know what? We're turning. That's steady. We're going around it and spinning. Suddenly, if you could fix that with an instrument, you knew where you were, no matter what part of the ocean you were on. So that was called a sextant, and you held it up and you calculated. I've never looked through one, but they were a sextant. Suddenly the earth had a surface, and there were magnetic lines that you could calculate by. Big deal. Really different. So that's chu. You got your heading. So this bodhisattva is known as Mr. Navigator, right? The navigator can navigate because zhi knows. That's our verb. What does he know? He, she knows. Jing, yi, chu. He knows the sutras yi, meaning chu and purpose. Jing, yi, chu. Ci di lian he go. And sees how they hang together in their right order. Sees their structure and sequence. Much better translation than knows how they're related to each other in categories. So he knows their structure and their sequence. What are they made of? What comes first? What comes next? That's it. So today, the Berkeley Monastery recited the Restore Sutra. And we have recited sutras here before in our 18 years. We've done it some, not often. We have done the Medicine Buddha Sutra, especially when we lectured on it years ago. We've done the Restore before. We do the Amitabha every other night. But the Dharma method of Song Jing, Nian Jing is not one that we do a lot, but it's a wonderful Mahayana Dharma. This is a really fine practice for Mahayana. And I say it that way because now in the Tibetan Mahayana, they also recite sutras regularly, particularly the students who follow Lama Zopa Rinpoche. They recite sutras, but it's pretty special to have a room of Dharma friends with the Buddha's voice, not a commentary, but the sutra, in front of you, and you're all going along, to this rhythm. 如是我闻你是否在舍卫国其数及孤独言语大比丘僧1250人俱皆是大阿罗汉众所知是 like that. And something builds around the room, depending on how skillful the leaders are and how much they're listening to everyone. And as the pages turn, you can forget yourself. you move into the text. Boundaries dissolve. And it's one mind reciting, and then it's the sutra at some point reciting itself. Interestingly enough. What's that? It sounds mysterious, but you can have that feeling sometimes. Until you have one person who's determined to be loud, or it's too slow, or somebody's not watching the pitch and it goes kind of like a 33 1/3 RPM that just. So, but then they'll just take somebody to pick it up and it comes back. So it's a wonderful dharma. So there's a group mind involved, and there's a lot of skill in crowd control and managing that group mind. But if you can get past those basics, it's a wonderful dharma. And it works really well in Chinese, because Chinese is monosyllabic, essentially. Bum, 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 like that. Thus I have heard at one time the Buddha dwelled at Sravasti in the Jada Grove, in the garden of the benefactor of in the solitary, together with the gathering of great pictures, 12,050 in all the great arhats whom the assembly knew and recognized, elders Shariputra, Mahamagayana, Mahakashyapa, Mahakatyayana, Revata, Sudatta, Nipanta, and others such as these, all great arhats well known of the assembly. It's not as... It's too chewy in English somehow. We haven't quite got the method. There's too many syllables. The accents don't fall together. Chinese, right? Moha mu jian lian, moha jia shi, moha jia jian yan, moha ju shi lo li po do jo li pan do che. It's really nice to have that dunk dunk, because it aligns with your heartbeat. And your lungs start working with it. And there's your nervous system kind of fires regularly with that. But English and Romance, Northern European languages, are not that way. Okay, so who has solved that problem? Well, Roman Catholics have solved that problem. Why? Have you ever been part of the office at a monastery where they do the hours? Having the monks chant the Psalms, as they do every single day. Oh, it's lovely. I would butcher it if I tried to do it out of hand, but there are chant tones that Father Cyprian is the master of now. By the way, if people haven't seen our Dharma brother Cyprian Concilio, he has been appointed as prior of New Kamaldali. He's the abbot. He's been boosted up. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders now. And that's really a good thing, because he's the new generation. And I've now known 4 abbots at New Kamaldali, and they're outstanding men. Father Cyprian is the new generation. Father Raniero suffered enough as abbot. It's time for him to take a break. So, anyway, when they chant so beautifully. And it's text. And it's the Psalms. So, we need to look into that. But it's not quick. It's not for quick. And we're used to thum pa pa pum 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 pa pa pum pum tum pa pa pum pum, like that. And it's not that way. It's much more soulful. And you taste each word. So, maybe it'll be another century, who knows? Maybe Jin Chuan's disciples will be the ones who will figure it all out. I'm not for sure you got it. I don't know. I know for sure I don't got it, but we'll see. Jin Husher, you got to find some musical disciples. Where is Johann Sebastian Bach's reincarnation when we need him? Put out into space, put out an advertisement, right? Liturgist needed. Inquire somewhere with a mom. Find a mom and come back, right? So, anyway, we are working on that problem. But today we recited Earth Source Sutra in English and Chinese. Very nice, very powerful. So, was the drift, the point of the sutras, and he knows how they hang together. That's what this says. Obviously. It's not that we don't have language that'll make sense of this. It's just that we don't dare say it the way people actually talk. He knows the point of the sutra and how they're built. What comes next? So, yeah, well, what comes next in the Earth Store Sutra? Stories about filial daughters. That sutra is so invisible once you get out of the Mahayana. It's so funny. And even parts of the Mahayana, people don't know about it. Earth Store Sutra? Wasn't that like, that? I heard that was not written, the Buddha never spoke that, right? Jay, we got seats? Grab a seat. Some people say it's, what do you say? They call it apocryphal. The Buddha never spoke it, say some people. And such a powerful text is so invisible. I think it's because sutras about women shouldn't be good. I think it's a misogynist holdover, honestly, to tell you the truth. I think the patriarchs are not happy about a bodhisattva who owes his past to his lifetimes as a woman. Something like that. That sounds harsh, doesn't it? But stranger things happen in religions. And the sutra deserves to be known, better known. Well, that's one way to call it. Another way to say it would be the stories of the hells are just too much. That might also have something to do with it. Because the description of the hells in 2 of those chapters of the Earth Store Sutra, they're awful. We don't go there much. So, for whatever reason, that sutra, with all the strength, when you read along in that sutra, you discover that the Buddha picked Earth Store Bodhisattva to take care of things in this age, keep it alive. Well, if that's true, why didn't we hear about that before? Well, because that sutra is powerful medicine. Right? 好药苦口而利于病. Right? The best medicines taste bitter, but they get you well. So, that bodhisattva can know the drift of the sutras and how they come together. All right. 名为忏愧者自护护他故. This bodhisattva is called the one who knows shame and modesty. Nope. Kui. Because he or she is able to protect himself and others. That's real interesting. The connection between 忏愧 and protection. I looked at the commentary by Master Chengguan, our Tang Dynasty commentary on that one. And it was a beautiful passage where he says, he just basically restates it. He says, the ability to confess saves you and your family and your village, your community. If you hide your mistakes, you do yourself in, and anybody you relate to. You can't sustain, because it's like my illustration from Wang Shanren. It'll make you sick. And if you can spit it out, what changes? Your system has broken through the barrier. You keep yourself going, and the people around you, while they might be shocked and you might be embarrassed, they all feel relief. Why? Because 人非圣贤，孰能无过? Who is free of errors. People are not worthies and sages. Everybody's got that stuff, right? And if one person can do it, then everybody can. Because it's real scary. How scary, especially for guys, to say, I made a mistake, I'm wrong. Oh, that's really hard for guys, really hard. Women, not as hard. It's funny. There's something about think of the yin and the yang in the Book of Changes, the solid line and the broken lines. You need them both. And the solid line doesn't like to, just pass it, forget it. Let's go. But if you can, that's really, really the way to protect yourself, because you'll versus stiff and broken. When do you know you're old? When you can't bend anymore. And it creeps up in the midsection, right? Here, this gets stiff, the sacral area, the back of the spine. When that's stiff, you're old. And that's why yoga and Tai Chi and martial arts work so much on keeping this limber, this part right there, and the base of the spine. And even if you're old, but that's flexible, you're young, because that's the center joint, right? So, being able to let stuff go is keeping that flexible. If you don't believe me, go find a beaver dam. Okay, I'll go find a beaver dam and prove you're right. Anybody who comes from Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Upper Peninsula, knows what I'm talking about. If you go out into the forest where there are beavers and you find a riverbed that's dry, you go upstream and you'll discover this amazing, incredible architectural construction made by big-toothed, broad-tailed, furry rodents called beavers. Beavers take sticks, weave them together into this incredible edifice, stop the water flowing. It's called a beaver dam. And it's very natural. It's what they do. And it helps them catch fish. And their beaver houses are very cool. I remember growing up with all these pictures of beaver homes. And they make their homes underwater in little caves that they create. And it's really tragic, but a good forester probably has half a dozen beaver dam explosions in his background, because he has to go in there and blow it up, get the beavers out of there and release the stream again. Otherwise, the river changes course. So lakes form behind beaver dams. They're that architecturally solid. So when we hang on to a mistake, it's like a beaver dam. The water of our wisdom, of our life, can't flow anymore. But if you can get in there and you have to they dynamite beaver dams, blow it up. First you get the animals out. You have to do that. Everybody out of there, fire in the hole. Right? Little ones, get them out. Beavers are not fun. They will attack. Beavers will advance on people. And blow it up. And then the water flows again. And what do the beavers do? They go right back in there, chew the next tree down. Ka-tonk, 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 ka-tonk. Give them 6 months and it's all back. They are busy as a beaver, right? They're industrious, chopping the trees down, using their dental work, right? If you are a beaver, you need to know an orthodontist to survive. So that's what it means to tang kui, is to let that go and to let it, so you can protect yourself, that your days will be long in the land and life will continue. 名为坚固者，不舍戒恒故. He, she is called the solid one because he does not abandon the practice of the precepts. How about that? This is such good dharma, huh? Names for the bodhisattva. Solid person. Because they don't stop holding the precepts. There's this If you want to know a good yardstick measure of religious or spiritual teachers who are unreliable, especially within Buddhism, find the one who says, and you can find him, oh, he's way beyond the precepts. They're advanced now, they don't have to bother with all that small vehicle stuff. I hear that. You can find that almost every day, right? They're beyond that now, doesn't apply anymore. When you hear that statement, what that essentially means is the person has stopped their progress on the Buddha's path. What did the Buddha teach? The Buddha taught Shila Samadhi Prajna, precepts, concentration, and wisdom. That's the Dharma. That's the path. That's what he taught from beginning, middle, and end. And the Samadhi comes from the precepts. And the wisdom comes from the Samadhi. And when you have wisdom, what do you see? The essential human value of the precepts. So you hold them better, not worse, than you did. The more wisdom, the deeper the precepts go. Because why? They are the shape of your nature. What does your nature look like? It looks like human at its best. Kind, generous, virtuous, truthful, and wise. Not murderous, greedy, lustful, dishonest, and drunk. Right? The opposite of those, which is kind and humane, life-giving, generous, sharing, giving, virtuous, true to relationships, honest, keeping your word, and sane, sober, and wise. That's the shape of human, that's the definition of humanity. Says Moses in the Ten Commandments, Patanjali with his yoga aphorisms, and the Holy Quran, the Prophet Muhammad. Bless his name. So there you go, right? It's like all the wise people talking about humanity on our tribe, in our human tribe, said the same thing. This is what people look like. No killing, no stealing, no lust, no lies, no intoxicants. 5 precepts, says the Buddha. So you abandon those because now you're like above those? Did you stop being a human? If so, maybe you've got another set. But that's humanity. And so as soon as you hear somebody say, oh yeah, they're beyond the precepts now, they don't have to worry about that piddling Theravada stuff. They don't say Theravada, they say small vehicle. Right? You go, okay, thank you. I guess you've kind of left the path. So that's time to retreat from somebody who defines their practice that way. This person is called 名为觉者，能观事处非处故. 事处非处. What do we hear that? That's one of the Bodhisattva's wisdom powers. The 10 wisdom powers of the Bodhisattva. 事处非处之理. Right? What is the case and what is not the case? This Bodhisattva is called the one who's awake, the awakened one, because they can contemplate. 能观事处非处. What is the case and what is not the case? Know what's right and what's wrong. Very clear. When you saw Master Hua, when you saw Shifu, you had this feeling that he was primary colors. Red, green, yellow, blue. There was no doubting where he stood. He was not kind of neutral chartreuse pastel. Not. When something was right, it was always going to be right. When something was wrong, it was clearly wrong. And he would stop, go, like that. It was like he had been doing good and avoiding evil, as we say every day at lunch, for so long that it was indelible. Shifu was just primary colors, completely clear what was shi and fei, chu and fei chu, right? He was that way. So, 明慧觉者, somebody who's awake. All right, what else is he called? He has another name called 随智者, 名谓随智者,不随与他故. Okay? These are getting a little more subtle. He is somebody who follows wisdom because he doesn't follow after others' teachings about wisdom. Does that mean he doesn't follow the Buddha? No. She follows principle, Dharma principle, which is found in your nature. So he's not out there arguing points of theology. He's inside listening carefully to what comes out of her own wisdom. Okay? 名谓随会者,善知义非义具差别故. Here we go. He's called one who follows, one with discernment, because he well knows. Terrible. Well knows. It's not an adjective. Because he is good at knowing the difference between what is meaning and meaningless. Okay? What is it? 随, so we had 随智, and now we have 随会. Pretty much the same, although different. The words are interchangeable. The ideas behind them are not. So, this person can accord with wisdom. They can also accord with knowledge or discernment. In this case, it means 善知, good at, not well as an adjective. All right? Good at is really good at telling what? 义非义具差别. What is meaningful and what is meaningless, and the differences in those statements. How do you know something has meaning? You listen to it, and you compare. Shifu would say, are they fighting? Are they greedy? Are they seeking? Are they selfish? Are they after benefits exclusive for them? Are they dishonest? If so, 非义, meaningless. There's no particular connection to principle rooted in the nature. Follow that, you're going to go wrong. You can follow it, but you're going to wind up, in the end, having to come back and tracing your route, figuring out where you left the path. You get lost. Why? 非义. It's not part of the nature. If it's义, you come back, it's boundless. It just connects to a deeper root, a deeper root, deeper root. Right? So, that principle is just true in so many respects. In Guoqing Si, at Glory of the Country, glorifying the country monastery, Tiantaishan in Zhejiang province near Ningbo, that monastery has made it through 16 centuries. Still there. Pretty much untouched. There, you read Han Shan, the mad mountain poet, you read his poetry, and you read the poetry of his buddy, Shida, Pickup, Cold Mountain and Pickup, and you think, wow, those poems are so evocative. They really give a flavor of high mountains and floating clouds and cold water and the sun, being your only companion, and the moon at night, no other friends, because you're so high up in the mountain. And you go to Guoqing Si and you say, he walked here. He was standing on that stone, writing his poetry on the wall. You go, wow, sense of continuity in history. Why is Guoqing Monastery still there, undestroyed after all this time? And the current abbot, Guan Pasha, takes us up halfway up the mountain, and he says, take a look over here. And you look, and all the mountain ranges, you're now 4,000 feet or so, maybe 3,000 feet. All the mountains lean in to the center that is Tiantaishan and Guoqingsi. He says, you know, why is our food so good? He says, and it is. The food there is really good. Not that it's one cook. He said, why is the food here so good? He said, over the centuries, we have here, because this mountain is the center and it's protected by all the other mountains and the waters, the shan and the shui, the feng and the shui. He says, it's always been a refuge. No matter what else was going on out in the countryside, you know, dynasties rising and falling, kings rising and falling, armies coming and going. This has always been a place where if you wound up here, you were safe. And he said over the centuries, entire cultures came here and they brought their recipes with them. They brought their food with them. So he says, look here on the table. He says, see that dish? He says, that's Kejia cai. Look over here. See this? That's Beifang cai. Look at this. That's Manzhou, Manchurian food. They came here. He said, look, over here, this is food from the south. They would find refuge here. He said, over the centuries, whenever there was luan outside, people would gradually work their way here where it was the eye at the center of the storm. So we kept their food. And he said, these dishes have been part of our cuisine for 600 years. Yeah, no wonder it tastes so good, you know. So what do we have at lunch? We have plums from a tree planted during the Sui dynasty, before the Tang, 5th, 6th century. Still giving plums. Here it is. Here's the tree. That tree has watched monks come and go for 1,600 years. Oh, okay, I get it. That is you eat. That's principle. When you find that root, whatever grows there is going to bring you back. It'll go out and be healthy and it'll come back. The monks who study there, who are learning their Buddha Dharma at the academy at Tiantaishan, live in a place called Wannian Si. Wannian Si is on the top of Tiantaishan. It's the peak. The monks who graduate and come back to teach there don't want to leave. Same faces that I saw years ago when I went there are still there, still teaching. A little older, but brighter. Because why? They said, what do we want to go down the mountain for? We got it all right here. We're at the center now. We like to cultivate here. You could see it. These are the faculty, right? They graduated, they came back. They want to leave. What else is there when you go out? The Taoists who were there, halfway down the mountain, are there to stay. They've been there forever. And this new generation is right there, working along. Yeah, nice place we got here. We expand a little bit, but it's pretty much the same. You know, same meaning since the Sui dynasty. Same, not like California. You know. So yeah. So when you find the E, if you're good at knowing the meaning, then it means you're connected to a root that goes deep. That's Buddha Dharma principle, and it's located inside. You find it in your nature, and you listen to it as it arises, and then you pick up the sutra, and the Buddha's saying, that's correct. Continue. Oh, why do you want to go anywhere else? You're already at the center. He is called, 名为神通者, 善修禅定故. He is called, she is called, one who has psychic abilities. Why? Because they're good at cultivating Chan Samadhi, Dhyana Samadhi. How did they translate it? One with spiritual penetrations, because he well cultivates Dhyana Samadhi. Good grief. Translate it, please. Spiritual penetration. Psychic abilities. Because he is good at meditating deeply to a place where the mind no longer moves being through the senses. Okay, when you can sit still, what happens is you are perceiving at a different octave of perception. Remember? This is so nice to have a non-linguistic referent. Here we go. This is psychic abilities. We do this a lot. Here we go. This is normal sense perception. This is psychic abilities. Same string, different note. Okay. This is normal perception, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. After dhyana samadhi, same strings. Played at a different octave. With psychic abilities, you use your six senses, but they're vibrating at a different octave. No different, just different vibration. Based on six senses. Having purified them and used them inwardly, in harmony, sometimes you can manifest psychic abilities. Not always, not necessarily, but that's where they come from, along with deep compassion. Mingwei Fangbian Shan Chaozhe. He is called one skilled in expedient methods because Nang Sui Shi Heng Gu, because they are able to follow world practice. They're good at knowing how to explain things because they are tuned in to what people really do. And they can use that to make it clear. If you don't believe it, come and talk about vegetarian eating to the Vipassana crowd on Thursday night. And they'll say, "Excuse me, you there in the robe, Mr. Expert, what does food on my table have to do with Buddhism? Would you talk about Buddhism and get out of my dinner plate, please?" And you go, "Oh, it's a different group, isn't it? Oh, okay, well, I'm going to say that." You know, it's like they're Buddhists, they're American Buddhists, they're real meditators. They don't connect to vegetarian eating. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? Right? Isn't it funny? And then 2 nights later, here, it's like different. You have to know how people understand. I've been teaching on Thursday night to the Vipassana group and had the lecture stop because I was talking the way I talked tonight on Thursday. No comprende, señor. Yeah, it's like, I didn't get that part. Talk about dragons, talk about psychic abilities on Thursday night, and well, he just talks that way. You have to overlook it, you know. But if you talk on Thursday night about psychological dharma, we talk about ways of understanding suffering through anxieties, through frustration, through affliction, through disappointed expectations. Bingo, they are right with you. And they can explain that at great length. You know. Don't talk about Thursday night. If you talk to the community at Abhayagiri about the Avatamsaka Sutra, because they're polite and good men and women, they'll nod politely, but won't follow you into the Bodhisattva path. It's not a dharma they've been taught. Yes. All right. One more to go. Mingwei Wu Yan Zu Zhe, Shan Ji Yi Fu De Gu. He, she is called one who is not fed up because they are skillful at bringing together lots of blessings and virtue. Wu Yan Zu means fed up, not tired of. Why? Because they have been working on their character. Their invisible Dharma body is fat and happy, well nourished. Somebody who is not insistent that the world conform to their way of thinking. Your way is good enough because they're not really interested in your ideas, they're looking at your heart. People like that, if you have a boss like that, fat city, right? Anybody have a boss who's a real humanitarian? I know Nam has told me of times about as a good boss. I won't name it. But somebody who's like got their eye on humanity, not as much on the bottom line. And they are interested in people because people create all kinds of products and services. But if your boss is only on the products and service and forgets the people, you get tired of that real quick. You will be 厌足, 有厌足, 讨厌, right? Because it's narrow and it's branch tip. But if you can come back to the branch, to the trunk, to the roots, that's somebody who has 福德, blessings and virtue. And from that place, you can grow infinite branches, right? That's the kind of boss or parent, dad and mom, teammate, manager, supervisor that we want to be. Somebody who sees the people behind it and understands they and the mind of that person is the root that creates all the branches. If we can find that, that person lives in a rich world of deep connection, because why? Everything is wholesome and radiates with humanity and goodness. The potential to wake up. Not just one narrow, tiny, well-defined, rigid expression of humanity. So that's how we call this bodhisattva. That's where his name comes from. He's called somebody who never gets fed up. Maitreya Bodhisattva is that way, right? Fat bodhisattva. He's not fat. But you can't get him upset because everything's okay. Like, what doesn't come from the human mind? Get real. Lighten up. All right, so we did 10 of those names, and we have another 10 to go next week. We're going to turn over to page 44, and we'll start there next week. And what do your kids call you, Mom and Dad? Ming Wei, what? What do your kids call you? They have a name for you, I'm sure they do, Mom and Dad. And if you follow the second half of the formula, there's a reason why, right? Why do they call you that? Well, it's time to transfer merit. Let's do that. It's on you have a songbook in front of you on your bowing bench. It's on the last page. This song has been sung now for 12 years, since 9/11. Eve Decker, our local singer-songwriter, Buddhist teacher, has just recorded it. So please make a wish. The original idea for the Earth Store recitation was about the Philippines. Remember that? Remember that storm? It's like the news cycle is passed on. Nelson Mandela kind of took that one away. And apparently 1,600 people are still unaccounted for from the Philippine Haiyan, that huge storm. So lots of pain, lots of suffering. And that would be a good thing to transfer to, but disasters are not in short supply. So you can transfer your merit. Doesn't have to be sad either. You can transfer your merit that everybody keeps their hearts awake and alive over the holidays, whatever it might be. Let's make that wish. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Could we, in that songbook, here is turn to page 10. Here is one sutra done, not with a wooden fish. This is definitely, it's a chunk of the Dhammapada, the Fa Jing, and it's an English language way to deal with the sutra. With a melody, of course, but many of the sutras, I think, were chanted. Those of you who know it, please join in. They say, this is the, some people say, this is the words, these are the words the Buddha spoke first upon enlightenment. Not strange indeed, say the Theravada. Here we go. Craving is the builder of this house. Craving is the builder of this house. Through many a rebirth in samsara wandering, I sought but did not find the builder of this house. How painful, how sorrowful to be born again and again. Craving is the builder of this house. Craving is the builder of this house. Oh, house builder, I see you at last. You will build no house anymore. Your ridge pole shatters, your rafters all fall down. My mind realizes the unborn, and craving comes, craving comes, craving comes to an end. Craving is the builder of this house. Craving is the builder of this house. So that's an English language sutra done for strings, but Chinese chanting does so well with percussion, right? Percussion, it works really well because of the way it's structured. English and Romance languages do better with strings because we're more like that. So, it's work in progress indeed. All right, Eric, would you do me a favor? Behind you on the pew, there's a calendar. Could you bring me one?
I just put it in my mouth, right there. Put it in the tiger's mouth. There you go. All right.
You can't say anything now, right?
I
What's the problem?
don't have thumbs. That's my problem. I got paws, but no thumbs.
I know, that's a problem. How about if I help you out?
Oh, thanks. Okay, calendar time every year. And this one's about animals. So, worth a look. And take one, all right? And if you take more than one, you got to deal with me. I'll be at the door inspecting, so, one. And if you want more, because uncle or auntie, couldn't make it tonight, come talk to the monk. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So, yeah, it's got pictures of animals on it. I'm not in there this year. Something to do with royalties, I think. My contract's with Warner Brothers, so I couldn't get my lawyer. He was vacationing in Shanghai, so yeah. All right, so help yourselves to the calendars, and really glad you all recited Earth Store today.
Why is that?
Well, that animal that he rides on?
The Sibuxiang?
Yeah, that's the one. Well, tigers, we're not afraid of much, but he's pretty scary. And when you recite his sutra, he's easier to live with. So keep reciting and keep him happy.
What's so scary about him?
Have you seen him?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's all, he goes down to the hills and comes back up, and Earthstore rides on him. Boy, pretty awesome animal.
Yeah. Do you want to learn how to...
Well, I don't know if he'd take me as a disciple.
Besides, I'm going to be gone.
Yeah, well, what do you think we do up there when you're gone?
I don't know.
We learn from the Sibuxiang. Boy, he's tough.
You can be like a Sibuxiang in the future.
Think so?
It depends on how hard you work.
Yeah, well, okay. So keep reciting that sutra, and it's easier.
Good. All right. Now, I need to explain why you can't come to Australia.
Yeah. They were asking about that up there.
So the problem is you're too big.
Too big? A little louder, please. What's her name? Okay, yeah, right. Nah, it's like, they squeeze you down into the suitcase and they squeeze all the air out of you. It's like, and it's tough. 14 hours only to Hong Kong, then another 8 to Australia. So we come out of that suitcase looking like we've been on a diet. So, yeah, ticket. We'll take a ticket. You think they sell tiger tickets? Okay. Strap me into the seat. Yeah, vegan meal, please. I like the aisle. Okay. It's a deal. Okay. Boy, they would be so happy to see Ginger in Australia because there aren't any tigers there, So, things to announce. Refuge and Precepts tomorrow at CTDB, so sign up in the morning. Also, Liberating Life and the Avamtasaka Sutra recitation session, Amitabha's name. We're going to do 2 weeks of Amitabha and 3 weeks of Chan. So that's available to anybody who wants to take part. Really recommended. There's an energy, those sutra recitations, that is just incredible. So that's going to happen. And this is a document. Oh, thank you. I don't know if that's for the tiger or for me. Now we got 2 of us up here. I guess it must be for me. Please blow your nose into the microphone. Okay, thank you. There you go. It's that voice in Tiger's voice. So this is a journal from Seal Rock to Olima. This is the Marty and I kept journals on our bowing pilgrimage and didn't follow instructions. The instructions were, 你们赶快把它写好了，要出版. Right away, quickly, finish writing those and get them out. Well, right away became 30 years. So this is the last chunk of our bowing journey in manuscript form, in notebooks, that still has not been published. And it's full of stories about what happened and principles. One of the reasons why this has stayed in notebook form is because the writing, my pilgrimage at this point changed. It went inside more than before, and I started writing for myself. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's very self-centered, but this, in terms of, I wasn't writing essays thinking somebody will read this someday. It was like, basically just my daily experience. For example, quote, he doesn't seek life itself or any of the hosts of other dharmas. Dharma Master Shen Guang suddenly understood. Originally it's just this way. I need only act dead. I need only be a living dead person. Come and kill me, said the patriarch to the executioner. End of quote. 3 steps, 1 bow is the rare chance to face the fear of death and to overcome it. Shifu's quote, to be free, you must be free of birth and death. Then if you want to fly into space, you can fly into space. If you want to drop into the earth, you can drop into the earth. If you can do this, you're truly independent. Like the parrot, you are free, said Shifu. My comment.
Life force is at low ebb these days. Our health is poor. The weather is harsh. We are constantly on the verge of collapse. This is March 31st, 1978. We will not act to save ourselves. Why not? Isn't this extremely stupid? Sherfu's quote, when you are sincere, no, let's see. Okay, right. When you're sincere to the extreme, you can get enlightened. The body dies quickly, principle abides forever. Don't rely on outer circumstances, concentrate on the Dharma within. Quote from the Avatamsaka, he vows that all beings will be able to give their bodies to their good advisors and follow their teachings with their very lives, never turn their backs on them or oppose them. Been sick for 2 weeks, better now. Deep water, lost all fuel and fire for 10 days. I had diarrhea during this time. Every bow for 20 minutes and then run for the bushes. Kept the wheel moving, etc., etc., etc. Turned at the end by hunger and emptiness and started seeking outside. Good states are not necessarily good, bad states are not necessarily bad. Turn them all with your skill. I almost managed it, but not quite, I said. Nikon camera, Guild guitar, Volvo car, Ph.D, astrology. These dharmas are not level and equal because I project myself onto them. Pull back the self and the light, and all these dharmas return to stillness. What is deeper still is mother, father, sister, brother, self, and other, all the same. Pull it back and they disappear. So how is that? Nobody can read that. That's like, that's one of the reasons why this is still in a notebook, because it's too, haven't figured out how to turn that into something to share. Anyway, so the plan is to somehow, in Australia, finally dump these into a manuscript. So I don't know. States, down by the Bolinas Lagoon, seeing the selfish liar in my bones, transforming him into a Buddha in my heart by giving the blessings and transferring the merit. Returning the light forges a new silent circuitry. Untying the food, fear, defecation knot. Seeing the cop wants to bust the kid for any reason, tense and harsh. New identity as meditator, concentration. Straightening out the mind, true, not a bit of false. Meditation rhythm, the same as tides, high at noon and midnight, low at 7 and 7. The body bugs say, let's see. Yeah, 4 hours of sleep and 4 hours of full lotus. It's like, okay, anyway. Anyway. Ongoing issue. Who knows? Maybe I'll be 80 years old and I'll go, one of these days we ought to do something about those notebooks. Oh, me tofu. Marty and I keep looking at each other and going, you're going to do, well, yeah, we really should, yeah. Probably said that like 1,000,000 times. Okay, so the calendars are at the back on the pew. Anybody going up to Amitabha? Couple? Good. Some refuge takers? Precepts? Good. Yeah. Dress warm. Although, I must say, tomorrow's the weather app says tomorrow at CTDB will be 31 degrees at 7 a.m., 69 degrees at 2 p.m. Let me double check. All right. That doesn't sound right, does it? Yeah, that's what it says. Let's see, City of Gold Coast. No. Try again. 75 degrees of Gold Coast. Okay, Ukiah. It's currently 41 degrees. And tomorrow, let's see, Sunday, 69 degrees at noon, 33 in the morning. That's called the maximum temperature diversions in all of California, which is precisely why the wine and grape juice tastes so good, because the sugar runs around, right? From coldest to hottest in one day. So bring your parka and your short sleeves both. So, kind of tricky. Okay, see you same time next week. If it's the path, advance. If it's not the path, retreat. 识道之进，非道再退，在善而从，不善而改。Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Jin Huayan Hai Fo Tu San